You have reached the Geek Elite. Good luck.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. But being this is a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off, you've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Okay, on this episode of the Mitch and Rich Show, we're going to go over some news items that we've missed while we were off, and then we're going to give you a review. I guess more of a discussion. We don't really... I don't know. Do you consider that we do reviews, Richard?
I mean, I guess theoretically we are reviewing it in a specific way. We aren't grading it or scoring it.
Yeah, we don't give like a definite like go out and see this. We're just literally critiquing it and saying what we thought of the movie, right?
Yeah.
So we are going to be...
Critique's a better word. Yeah, that's a good...
Yeah, there you go. We're critiquing it. We are going to talk about Coming to America. That's right. The sequel to Coming to America.
Which is kind of confusing, right?
Like, a little bit. Like,
yeah,
do you have to emphasize the 2 in the second one, Coming to America?
I think you do. I think they almost like should have put an exclamation point behind the 2 so that you had to scream it or yell it so that people would know that you were talking about coming to America and not coming to America.
I mean,
very confusing.
I think that makes a lot of sense to me.
I saw a like meme thing where it was like someone was like, "Oh, I need to contact Pixar because I have a brilliant name for Ratatouille," and they were like, "Oh, is it Ratatouille?" And he was like, "Oh no, but that's way better than what I was going to say. It was just Ratatouille 2." And I was like, "Oh, it kind of fits in this situation too, where it's coming to America instead of coming to America."
Yeah. So
or coming to America. And I guess the America's pretty excited on that one too.
Why not just stick with Coming to America 2? Like, if you weren't going to give it some fancy subtitle, just stick with Coming to America 2.
Right? Or, yeah, I mean, that would have worked. Or Coming to America Again.
Like, yeah, that would work. But, like, yeah. It's like the third Bad Boys movie. They went with Bad Boys for Life. They used the number 4, but it's not the fourth movie. So, like, it's confusing. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I mean, what are they going to do now? Now they've just thrown that away.
Right?
They were like, we're not getting a 4th movie, so we'll just throw it out there. And then they're like, yeah, actually, we are getting a 4th movie. They're like, damn it!
And then you know what happened? Bad Boys for Life was the number 1 movie of 2020. It made the most money in the box office.
Yeah, that oddly checks out, right?
That happened. That happened. But yes, we are going to be talking about Coming to America, and it is available on Amazon Prime. So, Richard, the first thing I wanted to talk about, well, the things I wanted to talk about all kind of center around the same company. So, another streaming platform has emerged.
Oh, God, really?
Kind of. Okay. Yeah, because Paramount Plus is taking over the space that was CBS All Access. So CBS All Access was literally just the TV series and movies that were on CBS. But now CBS Viacom, which is the parent company that owns Paramount, is going to take all the properties that were in Paramount and part of that Paramount network of television and put it all on Paramount Plus. So you get... you get your Comedy Central shows, you get your Nickelodeon shows, you're going to get CBS, you're going to get a couple other things too. They offer a ad-free tier and then an ad tier, but you have to pay for both. So, have you joined Paramount Plus?
No.
No. Nope. Have you seen anything from Paramount Plus that has interested you?
Good Good question. No. Not really. I mean, not that I can think of off the top of my head anyway.
I mean, that's fair. You don't have to have anything that you really want to check out. What would you say your top streaming platforms are right now? Your top two?
My top two would still be Netflix, and probably Amazon Prime.
Really?
Are probably the two that I'm using the most. Obviously, we have another movie we're going to talk about at some point, but that was on Hulu's.
Yep.
So I did watch the Hulu's. I mean, let's see here. Let me rephrase that. I'll answer that question by saying this. Those are the two that I use the most. But I mean, I have Netflix. I have Amazon Prime. I have Hulu. I have HBO Max. I have Discovery Plus.
Okay.
I have Apple TV Plus. Shudder, which is recent.
That's surprising to me though that you have Shudder, but keep going.
Yeah, I'm gonna circle back to that because I knew that was coming. Everybody was like, "What the what?" So I have those. What other ones are there? I don't have the CBS one. Okay,
well that's no longer around.
I have YouTube TV.
Oh,
which is kind of. I mean, it is a streaming platform, kind of.
You have to pay for it, so yes.
Yeah, right. So that's 8.
That is 8 right there.
Do I have any other ones? There might be some other ones I'm paying for that I don't even remember.
Well, here, let me go through the ones that I have.
Yeah, tell me what you got.
I have Netflix. I have HBO Max. I have Disney Plus. I have Hulu.
Oh, I do have that one too. I do have Disney Plus. So I'm at 9, and you're at 4, and you said Hulu. Is that 5?
No, Hulu was 4.
Hulu's 4. Okay.
Prime Video. I also have Discovery Plus. I have Shudder. I have Peacock. Well, I guess I don't technically have Peacock because I don't pay for it, but I do have the free version of it.
You still have access to it.
And then there's Tubi and Pluto TV, which I discovered Pluto TV like a couple weeks ago. That thing is amazing.
I love Pluto.
Yeah.
I love Pluto.
Pluto's
amazing.
I watch
it all the time.
I have a Plex server. I use the CW app. And I also have Dish Network, so I still have that streaming as well.
Down to the master.
I don't know if I have anything. I definitely don't have. Oh, I have the Showtime and Stars channels on my Amazon Prime. Does that count? I'm paying for them.
So. I mean, yeah.
So that puts me at 15. Like
Jesus Christ,
that's way too much. I do not have Paramount Plus. I don't think I'm going to get it because it just seems like too much. But I'm sure there's going to eventually be something on there that I want to watch, and I'm going to cave and pay for another thing.
It's hard. It's so hard to be a cable cutter these days. It's almost worse in some ways. I mean, not really though, because you get to access whatever you want when you want, so it's still better.
But the funny thing is that like sometimes you have a very specific movie that you want to watch, and you go looking for it, and it's not available on anything. Like, and I'm not talking about like new movies. New movies you can pretty much find anywhere, but like older movies, you like. What was it I was looking for the other day? Maybe, I think The Replacements. I think The Replacements. I was like, I just want to watch something that I can have on that I know in and out, and I can watch or listen to while I'm writing away. And it's not available. It wasn't available on anything that I own. Like, that's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous, especially The Replacements, because it's one of those things where it's an older movie, but it's not super old. Like, it's not one that you would expect no one to be like, it would be not good for us to have The Replacements. Like, no, I would totally watch that because you even just said it. I was like, oh shit, where did he find it? And then you're like, spoiler alert, you can't watch it. I was like, son of a. Why?
Watch it probably be on Paramount Plus, and if I would have had it, I would have been able to watch it.
Same thing happened to me. A more obscure film, but I went to watch the original Vanishing Point from 1971, not the like 1999 version or whatever it was that they redid with Viggo Mortensen, but like the original Vanishing Point from like 1970. Because I'm like trying to work on a project that's like grindhouse exploitation type movie thing, and I was like, oh god, I really remember enjoying the exploitation aspect of Vanishing Point. It's like car exploitation, but like I really enjoy it. It's again nowhere. You can't rent it, you can't buy it, you can't stream it. It's literally like it doesn't kind of exist, other than the fact that you can find it on IMDb.
I was gonna say, not even like on the Criterion streaming. Like, is that not a Criterion movie at this point?
Oh, you know what? I didn't. I doubt that's a Criterion. I doubt that'll ever be a Criterion Collection film. But
I don't know, man. They have a lot of like
you can buy it on Amazon.
Obscure ones now that are on Criterion. Like, and I'm actually very surprised you don't have that streaming platform. Like, I figured that one would be right up your alley. Which brings us back to Shudder. Why do you have Shudder?
Well, let me answer that question with a question. Why do you have Shudder? Because you said it too, and I was like, why do we both have this?
I got it because of the In Search of Darkness documentary. I thought those were pretty good, so I was watching that with John and Creepshow. Creepshow, I like Creepshow. Like I've liked Creepshow since I was a kid.
Well, I'm gonna have to watch those. So I got it. So there's a band named Carpenter Brew or Carpenter Brute, depending upon how you actually pronounce it. And they have this like really cool music video that came out, and I really enjoy their music. And so the people, from what I understand of at least, the people that did that music video for them did. It gets confusing because originally I think it was just supposed to be a short film, but then Shudder was advertising it as like a series. And so I was like, oh, weird. I was like, I guess they made it a series, but it's only on Shudder. So I was like, all right, there's a free trial. I'll check it out. And then, of course, I kind of got busy and I couldn't really watch it. But so I'm now paying for Shudder instead of just doing the smart thing and watching it during the week free trial and then canceling it. But it's weird because it basically is just a short film, but then they broke it up into 3 parts for seemingly no reason other than to say that they have it as a series, because the first quote unquote like episode, I think is like 17 minutes. And then the second one's like 19 or 20 minutes. And then the third one is also, I think, like 17 minutes or something. It's not really a series per se. I guess that's kind of what they were talking about doing with the Snyder Cut. I don't know. It's weird. But then I also saw that The Color from Outer Space is on there, which I was like, oh, I am interested in seeing that because it's Nick Cage. So I was like, well, I guess I've spent $8 on dumber shit before, so I'll just hang on to it. And but now I'm going to have to watch the 2 things that you just said, because I was like, oh, that's at least there's other things on there.
Yeah, that documentary was really good. I really enjoyed it. So if you give it a shot, In the Search of Darkness, it's all about horror movies throughout the 80s.
All right, I will give it a go.
But the whole point of bringing up streaming service was because Star Trek, which is heavily done on CBS All Access now, Paramount, they have about half a dozen new shows of Star Trek. Like there's Discovery, and there's Lower Decks, and there's Picard. I know that there's like at least 2 more. However, J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot is going to be producing yet another movie for Star Trek, and it's going to be written by Kalinda Vazquez, who wrote some episodes of Star Trek Discovery. She was also a co-executive producer on Fear the Walking Dead, and one of the coolest, and she has a whole bunch of other credits to her name, but one of the coolest things about her is that she's actually named after a character in the 2nd season episode of the original Star Trek series, Kalinda.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That is actually really cool. What a story to be like, hey, I'm named after this and now I'm working on it. That's pretty sick.
So as a person who was a very big Star Trek fan, I think I could still put you in that group. How do you feel about another movie from Bad Robot?
don't know. I mean, I think I'm interested in it at least. You know what I mean? I think they've done some good things with it, and obviously, I think there's been some that were not liked as much as some of the other ones. That's actually what I was going to say when you were like, "Oh, I just recently discovered Pluto TV," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, I basically just leave it on the Star Trek channel, and it just plays Star Trek: The Next Generation all the time. Like, currently. Yeah, so I'm just getting, tons of Captain Picard and Data and Worf and all that stuff, Geordi, all the good stuff. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think it's where the industry's at for starters. I mean, we're definitely in the territory of remakes and continuations of existing IPs. Like, very few people are interested in exploring kind of original ideas at this point, at least in terms of like the major like players and stuff. Is it going to go to theaters at all, or is it kind of like exclusive to the streaming platform?
At this moment, I don't think it's known. I'm sure the plan is for it to go to theaters, though. Like, Star Trek is still a property that they want to make big in the theaters, I would assume.
I mean, I would think so too. I would definitely believe that as well. It's just interesting though, because of obviously the state of affairs that the world is in, and then the Warner Brothers HBO Max move that they did, where it's like, are they going to do something like that? And I mean, I don't know. Do you know how many subscribers Paramount Plus has?
Well, they just started up March 4th, so I don't know if they've actually released any numbers like that. I didn't look it up.
That's fair.
But you were jumping the gun a little bit on one of the news stories, because Paramount Plus, during their Investor Day, launch day, stream that they did, like before the March 4th, they also announced that certain Paramount movies, not all of them, but during 2021, after a window of 35 to 45 days in theaters, they will premiere, or they will be available on Paramount Plus for a limited amount of time. Movies like A Quiet Place 2, Mission Impossible 7, Paw Patrol, the movie. And I know that's something that you're really into. And
so excited.
Top Gun Maverick.
It's so funny that hasn't come out. I feel like I've been hearing about Top Gun Maverick for like 50 years now. And I'm just like, I want to watch this movie. Is it out yet? And then you're like, yeah, I'm like, God, it's still not out?
As of right now, I believe... No, it doesn't say when the release date for Top Gun Maverick is. But, obviously we were supposed to get it last summer, and that didn't happen because pandemic. Yep. And they pushed it back to this summer. I don't know if they've pushed it back since then. Wow. It does look like that Paramount will arrive in Paramount Plus in 2022. So maybe that one doesn't get the 45-day window. But how do you feel about that? A 45-day window? They're not doing the same as HBO Max with day and date release. It's not Netflix, where it's only going to be releasing on streaming. This is a 45. Obviously, they came up with a deal with movie theaters to do a 45-day window, a 35 to 45-day window, for it to be exclusively in theaters before it goes to streaming.
I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's a good idea to make it pretty quickly available to, streaming platforms. There's a lot of people that still just don't feel safe going to the theater yet, and that totally makes sense. It sounds like, I haven't looked too much into it, but it sounds like they've kind of broached it and made deals with the theaters, and then I would assume also have made some deals with the filmmakers themselves too, which that was kind of my only issue with how HBO handled it. Warner Brothers, HBO Max, whatever, kind of handled it, where they kind of just went behind everybody's back and, did this and basically kind of allegedly screwed people out of a bunch of money, or that's kind of how it seemed, right? I do think it's smart, and I'm always behind the idea of getting it to people as quickly as possible, because obviously people that are going to go to the theater are going to go there, right? And I think this is true even in non-pandemic times, right? Like I don't think that this is necessarily a bad trend for things to happen because there are inherently more people that just want to watch things at home. So I think, getting something into the theaters and then onto the streaming platforms as quickly as possible, but yet still businessly industry responsible as possible as well, I think is smart. I think that also kind of would help cut down on piracy a lot too, because the quicker that you can close that gap, the less argument and reason someone's going to actually have to try to pirate something, right? So I do think it's a good thing if, all those other things are being considered. And it sounds like it is, you know what I mean? And I think when it comes to waiting a little bit, right? If you're like, oh, this comes out in theaters, but if I wait a month or two, I can watch it at home. I think a lot of people are going to be okay with that. Not just right now during the pandemic, but even going forward, because there is more content being released now than ever before. And so I think people have tons of options to watch things. So again, including that thing where it's like, hey, you can go see this right away if you want in the theater, or if you want to wait, you can wait and watch it on one of the streaming platforms. I feel like that's kind of a win-win-win,
So you think it's a good compromise from the day and date to the full 90 day? I mean, it's literally a half of the way. I mean, I guess these three movies in particular are going to jump past the rental and pay-per-view windows. Also, they're just going to go straight to a release on Paramount Plus after 45 days. But I mean, do you feel like that's a good, not taking into account like anybody's back end deal for box offices and stuff like that, but just for the viewer, the audience, like, do you feel that's a good compromise?
I mean, I think so, right? I mean, I think inevitably it's going to have to go kind of that way eventually anyway, right? Because I mean, I mean, when was do you recall the last time you bought a movie?
I mean, I didn't buy it. Someone bought it for me. I would have bought it if they hadn't, but I bought 1917, or someone bought 1917 for me on DVD.
Okay, I mean, that's pretty recent. That's a lot more recent than I was anticipating you were going to say. But I mean, I don't remember the last time I actually purchased a movie.
Like even digitally purchased?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, granted, my circumstances are a lot different now because I just don't have the same amount of time as I used to. But even then, more often than not, whatever I want to watch is already on a streaming platform, or at the very least, it's open up for like a digital rental or something. I've done more digital rentals recently, obviously because of the pandemic and stuff. So I mean, I would say I've done that, but I mean, I haven't purchased a movie in quite a while. And I feel like that's probably true for the bulk majority of viewers in a sense, right? Is that I feel like more people are like, well, I have this streaming platforms, or I have all of these streaming platforms. I mean, like you said, you had like 15, I have 9. I would say the average person's probably at least 5.
Yeah.
That's just a guess. Obviously, I don't have any hard statistical data on that. I'm sure it's out there. I just don't have it in front of me. But I would venture to say that it's probably a fair guess that the average person at least has access to probably 5 different streaming platforms at this point, right? I don't think that's too far of a stretch.
I don't think so.
So I mean,
and I think that a lot of people are also, I know that we're not supposed to be doing it, but sharing, like it's just the way that it's going to be. And I'm sure that the companies take that into account. Like, it's so many people are going, just in a household alone, are going to be sharing one account.
I think they know that because, I mean, Netflix lets you have different profiles. I mean, you can have up to like, I think 5 or 6 different profiles. So like they totally know.
Yeah, but I think that I mean, it doesn't that I honestly don't know. I don't remember, but doesn't that say like those are supposed to be within your household, like those profiles? No? Okay. I
think it just says like your family group, but I mean, again, they have the ability to track where the IP is logging in from. So I mean, they
True.
know that like I'm logging in from here and my sister's logging in from several states away. So I mean, like they definitely have the analytical data to know for sure that that's not happening. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, you're right. Obviously, that is going to happen. I think YouTube TV does a thing though where it does track like your IP address, and you have to like log back into your IP address or like from that IP address to that account ever so often, or it won't let you continue watching. So they're obviously a little bit more strict about it than Netflix and some of the other ones. But yeah, it's everyone's doing it for sure. Yeah, 1000% agree.
Yeah, so that a 45-day window, I definitely think is a good thing. Like, you're not going to be too, if you've decided you do not want to go to the movie theater, like it's not too far of a window that you'll be out of the loop about whatever it is that people are talking about having to do with that movie. Mm-hmm. And you're right, it will help cut down on piracy and make sure that people are getting paid for the hard work that they've done to make a movie. So one of the other announcements, there was a lot of announcements that were made at this Investor Day event or investor event for Paramount Plus. But they announced five IP properties that were originally movies that will be made into TV series for Paramount Plus. We already knew about Grease, a Grease prequel, and a Godfather making of TV series. So it's not a documentary about the Godfather, but a scripted television series about the making of the Godfather. Like, am I making myself clear what that is?
I think so.
Yeah. So it's yeah. But adding to the five movies or five properties that are going to be adding to these series is Love Story. I don't know 1970, Fatal Attraction, The Parallax View, The Italian Job, and Flashdance. Like, I know 4 of these properties. I don't know what The Parallax View is. I've heard people talk about it, and it sounds like it's great, but do you know about these properties?
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I think I know all of them except for the Parallax thing. That doesn't sound familiar at all. What's the Parallax what?
View.
Oh, yeah.
So let's see. This little blurb that's on The Hollywood Reporter says, The Parallax View, currently in development, is a scripted take based on the 1974 film from David Giller and Lorenzo Semple Jr. that was based on the 1970 novel of the same name by Lauren Singer. The film revolves around a reporter's investigation into a secretive organization, the Parallax Corps, or Corporation, whose primary focus is political assassination. It's the second in director Alan J. Palooka's political paranoia trilogy that also included 1971's Clute and 1976's All the President's Men, a film which starred Warren Beatty, Hume Cronin, and William Daniels has drawn renewed interest in the past few years. A writer has not yet been determined. Paula Wagner of Mission Impossible is attached to executive produce.
Weird. Yeah, I've never heard of that at all. That's strange.
So, yeah, that sounds like a political thriller made into a TV series, which is not unheard of. Like, I could see that happening, but like Love Story, Fatal Attraction, Flashdance, The Italian Job. Like, I can see The Italian Job being made into a TV series because you could always have more heists to do, right? Mm-hmm. After the first season. But like, where do you go after Fatal Attraction? Like, it's about a guy cheating on his wife. What happens after the first season? Like, does she just keep tormenting them? In Love Story, isn't Love Story about one of them dying?
I believe so.
Yeah,
I'm It's been a while, but yeah, I think so.
So it just seems like weird properties to make into some type of, I mean, unless they're all just going to be limited series kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard to say because I mean, you're right. I mean, it could just be a one and done type thing, or they could try to go the unfortunate way of just stretching it out as much as humanly possible, which traditionally never works out well for TV stuff. So,
I mean,
hard to say.
Would there be any of these that you would be interested in watching?
I mean, I would probably give all of them a chance, at least. I would definitely be interested in, for sure, the Italian Job. I think that sounds really cool. I remember liking Flashdance a lot, like in the all the 80s movies type thing, right? I totally would check it out, at least see if it's worth anything. The Parallax View thing sounds kind of cool. I mean, not familiar with it, but again, I would give it a shot. I
mean, that could definitely work in your favor, not being familiar with it.
It could, yeah. I wouldn't have any expectations kind of going into it,
So, yeah, if you want to look up more about what is going to be offered or what is currently offered on Paramount Plus, you can go check that out. I think it's $4.99 with ads and $7.99 ad-free if you decide to pick it up.
It's not bad.
Okay, let's get into talking about the movie that brought us here today. What is your feeling towards the original Coming to America, 1988?
It's been a very long time since I've seen the original movie. I really like Eddie Murphy. I like a lot of the stuff that he's done. I mean, if I had to take a guess, I'm pretty sure there's probably a lot of stuff in the original movie that is not really politically correct nowadays, as kind of just was the comedy of the 80s, so I'm sure it's in there, you know what I mean? But
I'm sure it is too.
Yeah. But I really, I mean, I don't know. I really like a lot of Eddie Murphy's stuff, Coming to America, Beverly Hills Cop, Golden Child, like a lot of his films that he was Trading Places, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I grew up watching those movies, so I really enjoy them. Again, it's not a movie that I'm like, oh, I've got to watch that every year or every other year. You know what I mean? Like, but I enjoyed it. I don't know. What about you? Like, do you regularly view this, or did you not like the first one?
Oh, so I love that you brought it up in that way, because yes, Coming to America is definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a movie that I watch at least once a year.
Wow.
I often quote this movie, especially with coworkers that, that were of a older age around 1988 when this came up, probably, their late teens, early 20s. So like it hit just right for them, and it's just one of my favorite movies. So I will die laughing watching Coming to America 1988 anytime. With that being said, I was really looking forward to this sequel, and I want to say I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It just wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, or at least was hoping that it was going to be.
Now, and that I think this brings up a really interesting dynamic point to the way this conversation might be headed, right? First off, I'm ashamed at myself that I didn't know that about you. I mean, I had an idea that you liked it. I didn't know it was like that high up on your list. Do you think that played any sort of role in you maybe not liking this as much? Like, do you feel like you had a little bit too much expectation for it?
Oh, I most definitely think that plays up to it. Not so much the expectation, just the fact that it had so much to live up to in the first place. I mean, I kind of always felt like there was no way they could possibly live up to it after close to 30 years. or I'm sorry, close to 40 years.
Yeah, it's like 38, isn't it?
Well, it's 88, so that would be
88.
Yeah, so that'd be what, 34 years or 33 years? Yeah. Anyways,
close.
So like, I just think that I just knew that it wasn't going to live up to that, but I was hoping with what they were doing here that it was going to be better than it was. But however, I do want to say I did enjoy it. I had fun with this movie. There was a lot going on. I just thought it was odd, like how much they spend on trying to say like, hey, this is a different time. We need to be more progressive, but yet still having jokes in there that are very like cringy and like, yeah, that's not okay anymore. Even in this, like, especially now kind of thing.
That was, I guess, going to kind of be my next question to you as well, was like, do you feel like I don't know. It's so hard not to be somewhat offensive, but do you feel like the politically correct culture of today's kind of society played a role in limiting this film's ability to attack humor in the way that the 88 version did?
I don't think it's so much the political correctness that hurt it, because I feel like they made a PG-13 movie here. Whereas in 88, the original Coming to America is rated R. I have to believe that it's rated R. Yeah, it's rated R. So like, I think
it's definitely rated R because there's there's nudity.
Yeah, there's nudity. And I think that's about it. That's the only thing that's really R rated about the movie. There's implied sex, but there's implied sex in this one too. Almost definitely the same scene. And that was, I think the problem is that it just doesn't go far enough for it to be like, well, this is a raunchy humor thing, or it's like, it doesn't hit on the same levels. Maybe that's because I'm older now. Maybe that's because I've grown as a person just in general. Like, I understand that, certain things are not all right, but I don't remember in the original movie them having another country that was neighboring that would that they possibly would be attacked by. I do remember the general showing up in the first movie trying to give his daughter to Akeem as a wedding as a mate, but this time they made sure to say the name of the country so much of Nextdoria, like that just, it didn't hit with me. I'm like, I get it. It's funny. They're the country next door, but it's just so cheesy.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And, I agree with you. I definitely enjoyed it. I don't know. I obviously it's really hard for me to quantify if I enjoyed this movie more than you did or not. I'd say that I probably did, just because I've seen Coming to America, the first one. I guess that's the best way to say it. I've seen the original 1988 version of Coming to America, or the first Coming to America, however you want to say it. But I mean, I certainly have not watched it or had the same. For me, I would say that my Coming to America would be Beverly Hills Cop. Like I watch that movie basically every time I just feel down or ill or whatever. That's like one of my go-tos, is like that and Ghostbusters and some other movies. But so I feel like maybe that's why I maybe liked it a little bit more than you. But I do agree with you. There are some things that are just a little too kind of repetitive and a little too kind of on the nose. And I do think that although I enjoyed it, I do agree with you. I think they could have pushed it a little bit further along. And if they were going to focus on his son, I think there could have been more of the focus on him being the fish out of the water. I know they touch on it and it's there.
I think that's,
but it's not nearly as much as the original.
I think that's the issue, is that Eddie Murphy did not want to give up the spotlight for the movie. Like, he wants the movie to be about him. Like, obviously we have to have a good chunk of the movie be about his son, because that's what it is. It's his son coming to Zamunda instead of him going to America this time around. It's just the little things that, like, I get it where they do the mirror of things happening, but like, it didn't make any sense character wise, especially for the character of Akeem. Like, he wanted to be a very progressive king. He wanted to be something different for his country, yet he ends up just doing the same thing. The only thing she changed was that I get to pick my wife. Like, all right, I got my thing done. Everybody else, good luck to you. Like, women can't own businesses in Zamunda? What kind of progressiveness is that? Like, they very much trying to paint a country where everybody's prosperous, but is it? Why don't we see that version of Zamunda then? Like, where people are not doing well. Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, it's okay.
I was just gonna say, and that's the thing that I think I was kind of a little bit. I agree with you, because there's also kind of this storyline of his daughter and how she's kind of, because the main premises is that Akeem doesn't have any male heirs to the throne. And there's like kind of the sub story of like his daughter wanting to be the heir to the throne, right? And so to me, if it would have started out and been like, oh, women can't have property or businesses, but his father's still alive. His father is still the king up until this point. And it's like, I feel like it would have almost been a more compelling movie if they would have picked one or the other thing to go after. Either it's his son coming here and being the fish out of the water, or it's him struggling with his daughter to re-find his identity, to change those things that his father didn't, because now he finally can. And it could have almost been this story of his daughter really being the fish out of water by being the one that's like really kind of trying to push him back. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of those elements that are compelling on their own, but they're kind of also overshadowed because they don't really get enough time to like let them fully be expanded and realized. A lot of it just feels kind of rushed.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because this movie needs to be a comedy, so things need to hit beats, comedic beats quickly, and you have the added characters of his son, which I am blanking on the name at the moment, Lavelle, played by Jermaine Fowler.
Lavelle Johnson.
Yeah, and his mother, played by Leslie Jones, and then Tracy Morgan is his uncle, and then you got the other family members there, where you're also got to incorporate all the old characters that they're bringing back, which are multiple characters that are played by Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall. Even Arsenio Hall gets a new character that he gets to play.
It's like a shaman type thing.
Yeah, a shaman character, which is the mirror to his Reverend Brown character, that we got in the first movie and this one. So, and then you got Wesley Snipes showing up as General Easy, and then his two kids, and it's just so much happening in this movie that is, I don't know, how long did the movie end up being? 90 minutes? An hour and Probably. 50 minutes.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. It did not feel like an hour and 50 minutes.
And yet you don't get to see Eric LaSalle's character. Like, what happened to the Prince of Soul Glow? When that product no longer was something that was worth it. And then how do you have the barbers still alive? They were old in the first movie, and this is 30 years later, and they're still cutting hair, looking almost the same.
I mean, yeah, because you would have to assume they were in their 60s or 70s, maybe.
Probably 70s, movie? Yeah.
Yeah, that's been 34 years. Like, they have preserved very well because they don't look like they've aged a day.
So obviously that's just these are the things that were the nitpicks, I should say, in my mind while watching the movie.
How did you feel about seeing Wesley Snipes?
Like, I am always thrilled to watch Wesley Snipes in anything, and I do find it interesting that, you know, he's doing comedic roles at this moment, because the last thing I saw him in was My Name is Dolomite, you know, where once again he's not doing anything where he's roundhouse kicking someone to the face, you know, or you know, having to do some running while a subway train is chasing him down. He is working on his comedic chops, which is cool. I'm all for it. Is he the best at it? No. But I'm okay with that. Like I enjoyed him in the movie enough. How did you feel?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I feel really stupid about this, but I was so excited. I was like, "Oh man!" And like the part, this is where it sounds really stupid. There's a bit of a part where some combat action does finally happen, and I believe he kicks Arsenio Hall. I think that's who he kicks. But anyway, he kicks someone down, and I was like, "Oh, there he is!" It just like totally snapped my brain back to like Blade, because the body movement 1000% the same, and I was like, God, why? Like, I love seeing him in this, but I'm like, oh man, can we get back to some great action? Like, please. It was it was a little bit, but it was so rewarding for me.
He did say that there was something that he was working on that's going to be, quote unquote, the Blade Killer. So there's the hope. There's hope that he's going to be doing some type of action thing that will put him on the map for that again.
So I don't know if this is it or if this is even still happening, but I heard something a while back where he was attached to a project called Outbreak Z. I don't know if anything ever happened with it. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but I feel like that was a while ago that I heard that. I want to say like 2018, 2019 that I heard that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
But I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, Outbreak Z, it makes you think already zombies. And I'm like, well, if it's a Blade Killer and you can't really... You did the vampire thing. I mean, going to the assassinating zombies thing seems like the next logical step. Now, if he ends up being a zombie person hybrid and has all of their strengths and other weaknesses, that's going to be super weird. But I'd still watch it.
Yeah, no, I'll be there. And I mean, obviously, zombies are much easier to kill than vampires. However, it's the horde of zombies that usually gets you.
That's
more
true.
than anything else. But getting back to this movie, I just feel like, did you feel like it's just way too many cameos? Like, I felt like that was one of the things that was the harsh part of this. Like, the original has a lot of cameos, but those weren't cameos at the time. Those were right. People that just that were starting out, and then eventually they went on to do great things. So that's why they are now considered cameos, I guess. But now this has got Morgan Freeman, you know, doing the eulogy at the funeral for James Earl Jones, which in his own is kind of a cameo because he's not in it all that much. Tracy Morgan's in the movie. John Amos returns in the movie. Who else did we see? Mutombo, the basketball player. I forget how you say his first name.
Louis Anderson was in there. Trevor Noah.
Yeah, Louis Anderson, Trevor Noah. I mean, there's just so many people in this movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely think that was a little bit kind of over the top, and you're right. Like, that's one of those things where it became a part of that movie because of kind of the success of some of those people after the fact. I think there's that, and there is a little bit too much. I don't know. Maybe this is the wrong terminology, but it also does feel like there's a little bit too much fan service. Like
Yes.
with all the, oh, maybe nobody's seen the first one, or they have seen the first one. We have to put all these like little flashback moments in there. And there's so many little flashback moments that, I do think it broaches the point of being just too much.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's just a little too much.
How did you feel about their use of the de-aging technology for the fake flashback of Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy in the apartment where, Leslie Jones drugs Eddie Murphy's character, Prince Akeem, and have sex with him?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's even before that, too, because they kind of had this mashup of them at the bar.
True.
And then where he meets her, and, like, there is a very distinguishable difference, not even in just the visual qualities of them, but, like, the capture quality of, like, the film of the 80s versus the digital that they shot on for the, 20s, 2020s. I don't know what the hell to call it anymore. But yeah, because like I was like, oh, cool, like it's that, and then boom, you're like, whoa, that's pretty jarring. How much of a difference? It's still matched very well, like within terms of the world, but like visually, you're like, well, there's definitely a jump that happens that's noticeable for sure. So, but again, I kind of you kind of expect that to be the case too. Once you see they're going that route, you're like, all right, it is what it is, and I think you can kind of dismiss it a little bit, But it's I would say it's for sure noticeable.
I don't know this for sure, but this is a thing that I've always heard, that cats use their whiskers for balancing. Is that true? Do you know if that's a true thing?
It sounds like something I've heard before. I mean, I don't know if that's completely true.
When we get to the point where Lavelle has to pass one of the princely tests, and it's to cut off the whiskers of a sleeping lion or resting lion, like, I was like, that doesn't seem right. If the thing of the balance is true, that's animal cruelty right there, right? Like, it's not the same as shearing a sheep where they need to have their wool sheared off. I don't know. Like, that was like, I don't know if that's something that you want to put in the movie nowadays.
I mean, I don't know. I did a quick Google search, so take this with a grain of salt, because obviously this might be off some BS website, but the first thing that comes up is that says whiskers are specifically tuned sensory equipment that guide a cat through daily functions. These specialized hairs aid vision and help a cat navigate their environment, providing additional sensory input, much like antennas that insects would have. Whiskers are also sometimes called tactical hairs. So, I mean, in some capacities, yes, you are limiting the survivability of this wild animal.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe it's because they're like a lion's an apex predator and nothing's going to mess with it, but like hyenas mess with lions all the time. I learned that from a Disney movie. Gotta be true, right? Gotta
be true. So that's what I'm saying. I just like I felt like that was a weird thing to put in there, to be like, oh, this is another kind of misplaced trope, so to speak. But
it could have been hair off the mane,
right? Exactly. It could have easily just been
hurt it.
And as I learned from Dragnet with Tom Hanks, it grows back, kids. Like they were happy about that. So, but the end of the movie is Prince Akeem, or sorry, at this point, King Akeem, makes the decision that his eldest daughter, will be the one that rules after him, the kingdom of Zamunda. I assume women will now be able to own their own business in Zamunda, and Lavelle will go on to being the American ambassador. No, the Zamunda ambassador to America at this point. So right. That's where they kind of come in with the progressiveness and stuff like that. So Also, one thing I did love is that they could have easily gone with Lisa hating Mary like so much, but they made it so that the two of them like were accepting of each other, and at points even like empowering each other, propping each other up, and they got drunk together. Like I that's the one thing I do have to give the writers. Like I'm glad they didn't go with the other trope of snidey, backstabbing women.
I totally agree with you. I think that was kind of a nice approach to it for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Direction-wise, Craig Brewer. Looking at some of his other credits, we have Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan, an episode of The Shield was a show I know you liked, the pilot of Terriers, which is a show I liked, the 2013 remake of Footloose, the 2013 remake TV series or TV movie for Boomerang. I assume that's a remake of the Eddie Murphy movie.
I would think so.
I would think so too, but maybe not. Episodes of Empire, which makes a lot of sense, and then Dolomite Is My Name, the Netflix movie from 2019, which also starred Eddie Murphy as a bio flick.
And Wesley Snipes.
And Wesley Snipes,
well.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, how did you feel about Craig Brewer's movie here?
Well, I mean, again, it's when you start getting to this level, it's a little tricky to tell what all is the director's choice and what all's, Eddie Murphy in the studio and that sort of stuff, right? There's a lot of, cooks in the kitchen at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I mean, I think the performances match what you would want. I think it definitely... It feels a lot like from what I remember the first one feeling like. Obviously, Eddie Murphy's humor has changed a little bit since then, so you get kind of a little bit more of these moments that at least that I kind of related back to Shrek Eddie Murphy and kind of moving forward from there, because I feel like, and again, maybe that's not fair. His humor might have changed a little bit before that. I mean, it could have been all the way back to like The Nutty Professor or something like that. But somewhere in there was like a definitive change in his humor, which is to be understood. I mean, that happens, right? People get
most
wiser
people,
and older and change. And
most people credit it to having kids and a family. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think all that sort of stuff makes sense. If he had any control over it, it would just be some of the comments that I made about the direction of the overall story, which he may not have had any control over that. It's hard to say, but that's kind of the only area where I felt like it really suffered a lot, was just it felt kind of inconsistent in what direction it really wanted to go. But overall, I mean, I think if you just let yourself watch it and have fun with it, I think it's a really fun movie. I think it's a good hour and 50 minutes of escapism from kind of everything else that's going on. Like there wasn't really anything that doesn't get resolved in a way that feels satisfying. You know what I mean? So I think that's nice.
I am not one of those people that will be like, oh, well, this ruins the original for me completely. Like that will never happen. You'll never hear that from me. Like a sequel, remake, whatever can only make the original better, in my opinion. If it doesn't make it better, I still have the original, which I love, kind of thing. So this movie does a lot in making me remember parts of the original that I love. And that I was completely okay with that. Like that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed this movie so much, is that I could sit there and have that memory of Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall taking down Sam Jackson in the middle of a McDowell's, or Louis Anderson explaining to what it is that the rich guys get and they always get the women, kind of thing. Which was great to see him in this too. I know that he has been on Baskets on FX for a while now, but like other than that, I haven't seen him in a good while. So I was happy with that. I do find it interesting because apparently at one point, Ryan Coogler had a treatment for a sequel to Coming to America, and it's from what I read, it very much sounds like the same thing that he did with Creed, where it's this time it was Eddie Murphy's son, or Prince Akeem's son, that goes to America to find himself a queen, because he doesn't want to have to marry the woman that they pick out for him, just like his father. And kind of the same things happen to him, which to me, even though I love Creed, is essentially the same as watching Rocky, just from another person, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I would have liked that better than I like this, even though this is kind of the same thing, but it's backwards, so to speak. I'm okay that Ryan Coogler decided to do other things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely makes sense. And again, I agree with you, and I feel like that's kind of my biggest nitpicky thing with the story is, and it's still not to say that it's not enjoyable or good for what it is and how they did it, but I personally think it would have been a little bit more interesting to just have focused on like kind of his relationship and struggles as becoming the king, and then the situation like with his daughter, you know what I mean? And like
I'm the same way. I think if they would have focused more on just the daughter story, like that would have been a better movie, and then incorporate all the jokes that you want. Like you could have done that.
Well, I think it would have given them more time to do that too, because you're stretching the screen time almost too thin for each individual storyline. That it's I think you just get to a point where, for a good amount of people, at least, that watch this, that don't like it, I think that's probably where the wheels are going to fall off the cart.
I mean, I feel like there is a movie in there, and I am not a screenwriter by any chance. I am, and I don't think I can make a better movie than anybody else, but I think there is a movie in there where Prince Akeem, or it could be already King Akeem, takes his daughter, the princess, to America and be like, this is where I found me. This is where I became the man that I am. You can retrace my steps, or you can follow your own thing. And we follow that story. She meets a bunch of women in a beauty salon, kind of thing. And, or it could be finding a boy or a wife that she might want. Whoever knows, like, love interest doesn't even have to be about it. Maybe she figures out that she wants to go to college, or, whatever it is. It could have been something interesting in that way. Whereas Coming to America would have been an eye opener for her on how she wants to rule the kingdom once it is her turn.
Yeah, I mean, it could almost be like their Rumspringa or whatever that is
that's
called,
very,
right?
very good. That's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah, you have to leave Zamunda and then see if you want to come back and rule it in a better way.
Filming wise, was there anything any scenes in particular that it looks like Jody Williams did as the cinematographer that you particularly enjoyed?
I mean, once you get to this level, it's very rare that you're going to see a movie that doesn't look finished and polished. Obviously, there are some things with the CGI and things like that of course are going to happen, and you just expect that. And that I can't take anything away from that. But no, I mean, I think it is exactly what you would expect it to look like.
Speaking of CGI,
I think the production design was pretty fantastic, though. I think they had a pretty crazy task at hand for that. And that's not to say that it's not a crazy task to be the cinematographer of a movie, but I think the cinematography is captured very well. I think it looks good. But again, in some capacity, you're doing a comedy, so you're not going to have necessarily as much freedom to be as creative as you might be with like a more dramatic film. Just because comedy traditionally is kind of like all high-key lighting, and it's a little bit more traditionally filmed, I would say. Whereas, like, you mentioned 1917 earlier, and it's like, obviously it would be a little weird if we saw Coming to America and it was like all shot in like a oneer. Like that would just throw a shitload of people for a loop, right?
Right.
But when you watch 1917, you're like, wow, this is kind of like a really interesting, different way to to do that. And I think that that's some of the issue too, is, you know, it's what you would expect for a comedy, but that's not meant to be like a derogatory statement. It's just, in my opinion, I think it's hard to be super cinematically creative with a comedy, and especially a comedy that's a sequel.
No, yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I do think that you have to have a certain look when you're doing a comedy, and this one does it. It definitely gives you the feel that you need for a comedic movie. I was going to say, with CGI, bringing that up, the elephant, like, I thought that looked great. Like, I was very surprised that it didn't look that it took me a little bit before I was like, oh no, that's a fake elephant, like, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's noticeable, but it's not to the point where it's like jarring. You know what I mean? Like, what was that Clint Eastwood movie that had the fake baby in it? And it just was like, what the
It was the Chris Kyle movie. It was American Sniper.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It wasn't like that bad. You know what I mean? Like, not that, I don't even think that was CGI. I think that was like a animatronic baby or something, but like, it just jars you out of the movie. Like, you're like so taken aback. But no, like the elephant, you're like, okay, the lighting's a little bit off and like the texture of its skin's a little bit off, but you kind of don't realize that until it's like kind of more into the close up and it's passing the camera.
Yep.
But when it's first coming up to them and he's talking about Babar, you're like, oh, yeah, that I'll just suspend reality for a long enough time period to question whether that's, you know, 100% realistic. And then it cuts to that close up and you're like, oh, okay, I guess it is CGI. The lion's not done quite as well.
No, it's not. But yeah.
Again, it's also more prominently featured, and that's tricky. I mean, it's definitely hard to do.
All in all, I would say that if you were a big fan of Coming to America 1988, give this a try. You'll probably enjoy it. If you're not a fan or have never seen Coming to America 1988, you might still enjoy this movie. There's a good possibility. There's just going to be some jokes that don't land with you. If you have opinions on this movie and you'd like to talk to me, find me on Twitter. I am at Mitchipedia. GEM stands for Geek Elite Media. Richard, where can people find you online?
So, actually, real quick, one last thing I'll say. So we were talking about the first one being rated R.
Yes.
And so I went, obviously, to IMDb. So take this, again, with a grain of salt, because it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. But I looked under the certificate. That's how it listed on there. So it says like certifications or whatever, right, next to the rating. Okay, so you click on that, and then you scroll down, and it says profanity. Okay, this is what it says. There's not much profanity, but still R-rated material. 12 uses of the F word, not much else.
Wow.
But
okay.
I'm like, 12 seems like a lot. Like, what?
I mean,
that seems like a decent amount.
I feel like
usually you get 2.
Yeah, you get 2 in a PG-13 movie. But like, if it's an R-rated movie, if you've already hit the R rating, why not put more than 12? Like, obviously, you don't want to just throw them in there for the sake of throwing them in there. If it should fall naturally in the dialogue, but like 12 seems really low for me for what I have to assume is like a 100-minute movie.
Well, and especially for that time period and that time period of Eddie Murphy. Like, yeah. I mean, especially Eddie Murphy's stand-up was just like,
but that's
blah, 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 blah.
That's the difference, is that the character of Prince Akeem is nothing like Eddie Murphy, the comedian. Like, he has to be proper and kind and upstanding. As not that Eddie Murphy isn't upstanding, but obviously had a very what's that called? Blue stand-up set. Are
you talking about the name of the?
No, just like when you do blue comedy, it's something that you use curse words and stuff like that.
Oh, I don't know.
I think that's what that's called. I could be completely wrong. I don't know anything about stand-up.
Totally right.
But that's what I get it. But does it not say anything about the fact that it shows naked breasts for?
Oh yeah, it does. It's just in a different. So they break it up into categories. So they have like sex and nudity, and then they have like violence and gore, and then profanity. So it's like it kind of breaks that up. So in comparison, though, when you look at Coming to America, it says some strong language, including ass, balls, bitch, bullshit, bastard, hell, nutsack, shit, shut up, sucks, and titties. But the other one only specifically says that it uses the F word 12 times, and then it says not much else. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of humorous.
It's also funny that they obviously use the word bastard a lot in the movie because they're talking about Lavelle. But like the fact that that's considered a curse word in the first place, like to me, I don't know.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be in that context because that's 100% how the word was defined. So
right.
Again, it's on IMDb, so it might not be actually true or the actual reasons that it was rated R or whatever. But it is. I just thought it was humorous and like looking into that. Anyway. Short story made long. You can find me on rycohen.com, and it just has a link to all my socials on there. So it's nice and easy to find me.
There you go. The rest of Geek Elite Media is at Geek Elite Media on Twitter, at Geek Elite Media on Instagram, and Facebook.com/Geek Elite Media is our Facebook page. Check out archived episodes of this podcast and other podcasts on our network on our website, geekelitemedia.com. If you'd like to be one of our patrons, go to patreon.com/geeklymedia. We have exclusive material that is only there for our patrons. And whatever podcatcher you use to listen to us, please rate and review us. It helps spread the word of our network. But until next time, this is the Mitch and Rich Show on the Geek Elite Media Network, saying always remember to geek out.
Geek out.
This concludes our broadcast.